My guest today in Entre Nous is Lindsey Tramuta, one of the biggest culture and travel journalists in Paris. She is also the best-selling author of The New Paris and The New Parisienne, and has just come out with a new book that all of you foodies out there are going to love. It's called The Eater Guide to Paris. Lindsey, welcome.
Thanks, Jeannie. Happy to be here.
So great to have you here. Now there are so many restaurant guides, so many recommendations out there. What sets The Eater Guide apart?
Well, for those who don't know, Eater is part of the American media network Vox. And Eater, since its founding 25 years ago, was sort of established itself as an authority on all things restaurant, the business of restaurants. But beyond that, it is also kind of the leading voice for food and dining culture. And so this book actually comes as part of a series with 3 other books that have already that are in the works, 2 that have come out already. Mexico City comes out in the fall. And so that authority and that perspective, I would say, combines with my experience all over the last 15 years reporting on Paris, reporting on how the city is evolving, and especially through food, of course. So
right.
I think it's a different kind of curation.
And it's such a big responsibility. I mean, how do restaurants make the cut? Did you go to every single one?
Well, I've definitely had experiences at all of them. The experience of trying to curate this list was extremely challenging, and I felt like I was picking favorites. But, you know, it really is important to think about what has staying power, what is going to be around hopefully 5, 10, 15 years from now. So you have certain classic institutions, of course, that have been here since the late 19th century, but then you also have more modern institutions who hopefully are going to be here for a long time. So it really needed to blend old, new, and on the rise.
And what's so great about the book is you really get the notion, which is true for those of us who live here, that Paris is not just about French cuisine. It's about so many different kinds of diverse cuisine. So what is the best non-French cuisine in Paris that viewers should try the next time they're here?
Well, I think they should focus on the diaspora cuisines in general. So all of the cultures that have really shaped Paris over the last century, whether that's Vietnamese food, excuse me, whether that's Vietnamese food, North African food, Lebanese food, all of these cultures have really influenced the dining landscape and also is part of Paris's broader history, the population that has also, you know, shaped culture beyond just food. And so those are the areas where I would say people should look. Go to Belleville, go to the 13th arrondissement, and even another arrondissement like the 11th where there's a proliferation of this diversity.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny that in my neighborhood, the 15th, 2 of the restaurants that were highlighted were Indian and Japanese.
Yeah, and actually what's interesting is there's also a Korean community in the 15th arrondissement that has its own history. Why the 15th was the hub for Koreans moving for work and education in Paris. That's where I believe it was Samsung was based. So, you know, there's a reason for the things that we've seen develop in Paris, and I think that's what's so fascinating. It's not just a question of restaurants. It's what is part of what has contributed to the Paris that we know today and how people are eating today.
So speaking of history, one thing that's so great is you have a good section on food history in Paris, and one of the key sites for centuries has been Les Halles, now the site of a major shopping mall. I mean, give us the mini version of that history.
That was my favorite section to report and really dig into. Les Halles started in the 12th century as the city's and the country's sort of leading biggest food market. It was the lifeblood of the city. This is how people were fed, essentially. But beyond that, over the generations, it was the mixing of social classes that I think makes it so interesting. It was important for people of all strata to get what they needed to nourish themselves. But you also had restaurants that were sourcing their food from that market. And so you still have a few restaurants that are essentially vestiges of the time of Les Halles as the market, including Le Pied du Cochon, Chez Denise. These are all establishments that are anchors and remain anchors around what was formerly known as the Belly of Paris, as Émile Zola so rightfully called it. And what's fascinating is that at its peak, it was the largest food market on the planet. And then in the 70s, it was shuttered. It was very costly to maintain and to update. And it moved to Rungis, which is still an incredibly robust market today, but it is not in the center of Paris. And so this food market that no longer exists, but you still feel the history of it, is so crucial to understanding Paris as a dining capital.
And what's so great about the book, too, it's not just history, it's not just dining recs. You also have some great foodie shopping tips. Now, I know many people often come to Paris and they say, what's that great little souvenir, food souvenir I can bring back? What's one recommendation?
Well, I have to call out a chocolatier, 2 chocolatiers actually, Jacques Génin and his daughter Jade Génin, actually, who has her own chocolate shop, they are not available anywhere else in the world. You know, there are a lot of these big pastry chefs and chocolatiers who have opened in Asia and in other parts of the world, but you can only get their chocolates in Paris. And so I would say go to the Haute Marais or in the 7th arrondissement for Jacques Génin and Jade Génin, who is on Avenue de l'Opéra, and see what she's doing. This real father-daughter, extraordinary heritage right in the city in chocolate.
We should have them on the show.
I think you should.
Lindsey, just to wrap up, you lived in Paris for almost 20 years. I know this is a hard question because you have so many favorite restaurants.
You're going to do it to me, aren't you?
If you had to pick one, what's the one you would say to people today, that's the one you should go check out?
I mean, my inclination is to say someplace like Kubri, which is a contemporary Lebanese restaurant that is great for vegetarians because there's so much that is veggie-focused there, that blends this beautiful technique from the chef who has spent time cooking in Japan and elsewhere in Europe, and uses the best of French ingredients for a cooking that is familiar for Lebanese diners and modern for those of us who want to know what else you can do with Lebanese food. And so for me, it is a beautiful expression of dining in Paris today.
All right, looking forward to checking it out. Thank you so much. The book is The Eater Guide to Paris, written by Lindsey Tramuta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeannie.
It's always great to have you on the show. And be sure to check it out. There's also a great section on where to eat near tourist attractions.
Yes.
Always super helpful.
Crucial.